So Dee, we're at segment 4.
Yeah, this is the last one.
About to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Call it a wrap, right?
Yes.
So what we're hoping to do with this one is to take off from what we've already established. We talked about how people should be able to read their property
bills.
tax bill. We spent time talking about how the municipal portion is used.
That 20%.
20%.
Yeah.
And the last segment, we talked about the history of property taxes, which is very complicated here. But it's worth understanding because it takes us to this point, which is to try to explain to the public the multiple reasons why taxes in New Jersey are generally so much higher than many other places
Which
in
is
the country.
interesting because in the history segment that we did, we talked about people moving here because the taxes were so cheap.
So cheap, right.
Not
So
anymore.
Clearly that's changed.
Things have changed.
So I think that we're not George Washington in this. There's been multiple governors and legislatures that have tried to talk about and figure out ways of reducing taxes. But I'm going to give you the Cohen 6 reasons for why I think there's high taxes in New Jersey.
Okay.
And for the most part, it starts out with the biggest portion of the tax bill, which is
Schools.
the schools.
Yeah.
So we have to recognize that the per pupil cost to educate students in the state of New Jersey is, if it's not the highest, it's pretty darn close to the highest. I think it's actually the highest in the country. But you need to juxtapose that against the fact that year after year for decades, New Jersey has always ranked number 1 or number 2 in providing the best public schools.
Correct.
The only other state that we seem to always be wrestling with is Massachusetts, which is another high-tax state.
Correct.
So clearly there seems to be some sort of correlation between how much you pay for public schools and the outcome that you get.
So the quality of the school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you look at the major reasons why school costs are so high, I mean, clearly we value education, so we put money into that. Teachers are the main cost to schools, teachers and support staff and all of the people that make schools work. Salaries are very high. The average salary for New Jersey teachers is a little over $80,000 a year. It's the highest in the nation on average.
Wow.
So we pay for the best quality teachers we can to provide the education to our students. And in the environment right now where it's really hard to find teachers, I don't see how in a economics 101 world of supply and demand, how that's going to change anytime soon.
Correct.
So teachers' costs. We also have to look at the fact that we have benefit costs that are part of your compensation that are very, very expensive.
So we're talking about health pensions.
And we have and have been known for a long time as a state that provides a very rich benefit package. And so if you want to start looking at other costs such as those are areas that we've been looking at for a very long time. But they are big expenses. We also have to look at the fact that we live in a state that's not new. You know, some of our infrastructure, our schools are a half a century or more older.
The buildings are old.
And the cost to repair them and maintain them are very, very, very high. So those costs have to be factored in. One of the other things that we have had to deal with in the last couple of years that clearly when we went to school really
wasn't an issue.
Wasn't an issue is security.
Absolutely.
Right? Besides the hard costs of putting in these vestibules and the monitors and the computer systems. But now New Jersey's made a commitment to have almost all of its schools with armed security officers. Well, that's expensive. Not every state has that. But we value security and we have to pay for it. Right? And then I think that one of the other things that gets unnoticed, but is an important issue, is the fact that our special needs population has ballooned here in New Jersey over the last couple of years. And East Brunswick's always made a big commitment to the special needs community. But when I was on the school board, which was less than 10 years ago, the percentage was in the single digits. Last year, we clocked at around 20% of the kids going to our schools are classified as some form of special needs, which is a wide range. It could be anything from extra time taking tests or in-house class support to an out-of-district placement, which is very expensive. And I don't know if our 20% is really an outlier compared to a lot of other schools. So that is a massive expense that the schools have had to incur. But what I don't want people blaming, and I hear it all the time from politicians, from certain special interest groups, is a blame for the cost on the NJEA or the teachers union. That is not the problem. For the most part, I've worked with NJEA for years, and they're committed to making sure that their teachers are quality, that they get fair compensation and fair work conditions. That's reasonable for all of us.
Absolutely.
But they are not the blame for the cost of education. We value education. It costs money. We have to pay for it. And unless you want to change that, that's not going to change. We also spoke earlier about the fact that in New Jersey, we've made a commitment to fund schools. The state portion that goes to schools is funded in a progressive manner, meaning that those towns that are in the greatest need get the largest percentage of the state money. And those that are more affluent are expected to pay more.
And we happen to be in one of those
and we're considered
categories.
a more affluent community. So it's expected that we would contribute more. So unless you want to change all of that, that's the number one reason. So that's number one. Number two, when it comes to why it's so expensive and property taxes are so high, is the cost of living in New Jersey is just very high. You know, in the last year, it was published that the most expensive city to live in the United States is no longer New York City or San Francisco. It's Jersey City. So it's expensive to live here. And there's a lot of towns and cities that are not that far behind. So it's expensive to live here. I think that we have to recognize that the cost of living here is higher besides just housing costs, but the regular cost of living expenses. And when it comes to townships or municipalities, school systems, county, 60 to 70% of our costs are the people.
Absolutely.
Salaries, pensions, healthcare, 60 to 70% of our costs. So unless you're going to make a dent in that, all of the other things are really at the margin.
Correct.
Cost number three is the fact that our benefit structure here in New Jersey is very high. We provide a very rich benefit program to most of our government employees. And while many of those expenses have really gone out of hand, we have to dial back a second and keep remembering that a lot of people chose to go into government work and accept the fact that their salaries are going to be lower than what they could have made in the private sector because in return for that, they were getting good pension, health benefits. The benefits is sometimes 50% or more of the entire compensation package. So people who've been working in municipal government, in government in general, in schools, came in with that idea that they're going to make less. They chose to go into the public sector, but that at the end, you know, their benefits would make up for the difference. So if you want to start making a big dent in those areas, we need to be prepared for the fallout, which is going to be we're going to need to increase salaries because otherwise they will all leave, which many of them are already doing.
And go back into private
sector. Right. I think the fourth reason that property taxes are so high is because of the cost of maintaining infrastructure. And while I'm frankly sick and tired of hearing people say how everybody's leaving New Jersey, there's a mass exodus, people are leaving more than coming in. Statistics actually don't show that. The census in 2020 showed that our population actually increased compared to the census before, and that increased compared to the census before that. So while it may not be as huge of an increase as maybe some other states,
it's not like a mass exodus.
It is not a mass exodus. And so now we have more and more people living in a very densely populated state that has infrastructure that is old. And so there's more pressure on those systems. They're breaking down, and the cost of fixing it is high. So we have to do that. I think the fifth reason why, of my six, the Cohen six, the fifth reason is New Jersey is in love with home rule. Everybody talks a big game about how, do we really need 600 different school districts and 500 and some odd different towns? And does everybody need to have all these duplicate services? And I think we all could agree upon that. until we ask you to actually combine with another town or to regionalize. All of a sudden, it's good for everybody else,
change our mind.
but it's not good for you.
Yeah.
And until we're ready to face some hard decisions, sharing animal control officers, sharing maybe some senior center services, that's not where you're getting your savings. You need to make some hard choices.
Dense.
Combining school districts, all the duplicate superintendents and business administrations and administration in general and towns and fire departments and police departments. If you're willing to make those type of changes, then sharing services is going to make a dent.
Because at the end of the day, most of the expense is a human cost.
Exactly.
Correct.
I know. And then I think the final reason why expenses are so high in New Jersey is that we also, like we value our schools, we value public safety. We pay more than any other state for public safety. Our officers, police officers in New Jersey, are paid 2.5 times the national average, and that is really putting them at the top of the compensation scale. And I'm not making a value statement on whether they deserve to be compensated that high, but we have made that decision. And so in East Brunswick in particular, anytime we add a new officer, that's about $250,000 a year between their salary, their healthcare costs, the pension that we have to contribute, and whatever average overtime they get. $250,000. So my entire increase in the municipal budget for this year was about $360,000. So put that all in perspective. So if you value public safety like we do, there's a cost that goes to that. So those are the 6 reasons as I see for property taxes being high. And it's not to say that the state hasn't made efforts. For decades, we've been trying to battle this issue of property taxes. As we said earlier, it was one of the main reasons that we put in state income tax back in 1975. So there are things that have been done, and there's things that have been talked about. So let's kind of talk about what's been done already.
Yes, let's talk about it.
All right. So state legislature and the governors that we've had in the past have, again, really concentrated for the most part on trying to give relief to those segments of the community that bear a disproportionate share of property taxes. So the programs that we're talking about really have been designed primarily towards seniors. There's 2. The first is the Senior Fees Program, which was put in place under Governor Corzine. And that one basically allows you to cap your taxes at whatever you paid when you were 65. And you need to apply for that. Whether you qualify or not, there's income requirements which vary each year. This year it's about $99,000. So if you make under $99,000 and you apply for a senior fees program and you're over 65, your property taxes are capped at that year's level or whatever it was when you were 65. And it's a state-run program, so you pay your taxes to the town and then the state gives you back the difference. Now, it behooves you, even if you're 65 and know that you don't qualify, not to apply. Because your taxes are going to be frozen at the year in which you applied, even if you didn't qualify.
Got it.
So if I don't qualify till I'm 75, but I applied when I was 65, when I do qualify, it reverts to the taxes that I was paying when I was 65.
So everybody
should apply.
Yes, run out and do that.
There's a program that's just been introduced. I'm not sure where it is because literally the state's voting on their budget as we speak. But there's a program that was just put out by the governor, Governor Murphy, by the Speaker of the Assembly and the Senate President called Stay New Jersey. And that's a program that was specifically designed to seniors because we don't want them to feel that as they retire and their incomes are now fixed, that their property taxes are driving them out of New Jersey.
Correct.
So this program, if it gets enacted in the form that's been presented, would mean that any senior defined as over 65, making under $500,000 a year, which is probably most of them, would be able to be entitled to half of their property taxes back up to $6,500.
That's awesome.
Now that's, of course, if
If
it
it passes.
passes and if it doesn't get changed.
Yeah.
And again, state programs. So you would pay your taxes to the township and the state would refund you that money. So the other programs designed towards the disability community.
Yeah.
There's programs for property tax savings there. You could find out more information by calling our tax assessor's office or the DCA, the Department of Community Affairs.
Okay.
There's programs for veterans.
Yeah.
Again, you can call the tax assessor's office. They have that information, or you can call Veterans Affairs. And then most people are familiar with Governor's introduced last year, the Anchor program.
That was pretty popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really designed for certain income levels, that if you're a family or if you're an individual making below certain income levels, you're entitled to a refund of taxes. And that also applied to people who were renters.
Yes.
Because as you know, when you pay rent, you're still a taxpayer, right? The taxes are included in the rent you're paying.
Correct.
So, and that looks like that's going to be in this year's budget as well.
Yeah.
So there'll be another chance for that type of refund. So those are programs that already exist. But again, I spoke earlier that there's been tons of effort on the part of legislatures over decades to try to do something about reducing property taxes. And most of the proposals have concentrated again on the biggest expense, which is, the schools.
Yeah.
And figuring out, is there a different way of providing a funding formula to do that other than what we do right now? And in order for me to really illustrate
My favorite illustration
of how their different proposals is what I call my four pocket analysis.
The four pocket theory.
So my four pockets are, this pocket is what I use to pay my federal taxes.
Yes.
This pocket's what I use to pay my state taxes. That pocket in the back is what I use to pay my property taxes here in East Brunswick, and an analogy would be for any other town.
Yeah.
And then the remaining pocket is the one that's used to pay things such as sales tax and cable tax and all the other different taxes.
Yeah.
So the first proposals that came out were ones basically designed to say that we're going to increase the amount of money that you pay in your state income tax to fund schools. Well, that's really just helping reduce this pocket by making this pocket pay more.
Correct.
Other programs have been designed to increase sales taxes or sin taxes. Let's put a tax on cigarettes or cannabis, or we'll put a tax on alcohol, or add to the fuel tax, or we'll do increase the regular sales tax, or maybe increase your cable company tax or your utility taxes. That's just making this pocket pay less by making that one pay more.
Correct.
And then there's proposals that the federal government should contribute more, and that the federal government should be helping ease some of the burden. New Jersey's a state that clearly and for years has paid more to the federal government than it got back. And while our legislatures, our governor have done a good job of getting more money lately, the president has helped in getting more money back to New Jersey, but we're still a state that pays more out than we get back. So maybe they should contribute more. All right. Well, that just simply means that in order to make this pocket pay less, I'm taking out of this pocket. And then there's been proposals that are combinations of all of them. Yeah. At the end of the day, does it really matter which pocket it's coming out of?
Correct.
Right?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
So I think that
we're just moving the expense around.
Right. You need to fix the expenses. Now, legislatures have also looked at doing things outside of just looking at schools. One of them has been, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier, about the idea of shared services. Yeah. Right. Even the present governor, Governor Murphy, at the beginning of his administration, appointed two people which he called shared services czars. Yeah. One was from each political party, so it wasn't looking like we're trying to play favorites when it came to shared services. And their goal was to go out into communities and try to encourage them on their own and with their help to share combine, services. Yeah. And again, like I mentioned earlier, they're the type of things that they've accomplished. Maybe they shared some court services, but more services that are not the most expensive. Nobody's really going after the big cheese, which are the schools, police. These are your biggest expenses. And if you can start to combine them and get rid of the extra administration, there's where you're going to get savings. But somebody's going to have to really
make that hard call.
Make that hard call and elect somebody who's willing to do that. And then we're going to have to accept that.
Absolutely.
Right? Years ago, I was on the school board. There was a request from Jamesburg to be absorbed into our school systems. They didn't want to continue where they were going. We didn't want that.
No.
Right? So it's very easy to say what we think everybody else should
Until
do.
reality hits.
Until it hits.
Yeah.
But that's where you're going to get savings. And then I think the last thing that they've tried working on at the legislature is figuring out how to control some of these out of control pension and healthcare costs. The healthcare costs may slowly start to be resolving itself because the big cheese in the state right now is Horizon, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is for the most part a monopoly.
Yeah.
And I think they may have overplayed their hand. In the last year, they went to close to a 35% increase to municipalities and the state government that uses that for their state health benefits program. And I think they may have, overplayed their hand because a lot of the towns and the state is now considering going into separate networks or self-insuring like we in town have done. East Brunswick's been self-insured for years and our rate increases have been very minimal.
Very small.
But now that places are thinking about doing that, a lot of these self-insured plans or these cooperatives are going to be very picky about who they let in, which means that they're going to look for towns or the state services where there is a low experience.
Absolutely.
They're going to want the healthiest people.
Correct.
So if there's a town that has, pretty high experience, they may not be able to get out of the state health benefits plan, which means that a company like Horizon is going to be left with the most expensive people to insure and no ability to spread it out among.
Which means those costs are going to
go
up.
even higher.
Yeah.
So, that might actually self-implode, which would be fine.
Yeah.
And then I think with pension costs, people often get confused with that as well because there's been a lot of talk about that in the public. But the state of New Jersey has 5 different pension plans. 3 of them are operated by the state, and 2 of them are operated by municipalities. Municipalities have one for the police and firefighters, and then another for everyone else. Those have always been fully funded because we've always made our payments as municipalities. The state hasn't always made their payments. And among the state benefits and pension system is the teachers, right? We make payments to the pension system directly from the township. That comes out of your tax dollars. The school's expenses do not include a pension. That's paid for by the state.
Okay.
They don't make pension costs. That's not in the cost that you pay for schools and property taxes. And that's the one that the state had taken money from years ago. And governor after governor after governor was trying to get that pension system whole. The only one who's really made a earnest effort at making full payment is Murphy. We're in a better position economically in New Jersey than we've ever been in the past. And we've now been able to make those payments. But I think if you look at all of those reasons why the taxes are so high here, and you look at the efforts that have been made, not for the weak and weary, people have made earnest efforts. I think you need to be very weary as a consumer, as a resident, when somebody knocks on your door and says they're running for office, whether that's a local office or even a state office, and says they're going to lower your taxes here in New Jersey. Because I'm hoping that through these series, you understand how incredibly complicated it is. And that some of the big changes that we would have to make mean those are going to be done at much higher levels than local government. And we're, as residents, going to have to accept some major changes if we want that to happen.
Correct.
So that politician that says he's going to lower or she's going to lower your taxes, be very weary.
Absolutely.
So I hope that now that we've gotten that big meaty topic done, I hope that residents have a chance to take a look at all 4 of these segments because it tells a story. And it tells a story about property taxes, its makeup, how we got here, all the efforts that have been made to try to work on reducing property taxes. And This is a New Jersey problem, and I think that we're all going to have to be pretty unique and maybe think a little bit out of the box if we want to really solve those problems. But the way to solve problems is to make sure that everybody understands the basic facts first. So I'm hoping that this did that.
I think so.
And that we can consider being lucky to live here in New Jersey. I actually think that I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
It is a great place to live.
And we can always do things to make that better.
Absolutely. And now we know why taxes are what they are and why they cost what they cost. I think it was a really great series. I learned a lot.
Thanks, Dee.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.